Usually takes a minute.
Right.
As soon as I get the official word from the official timekeeper. Kate, are we still,
Thank you, Commissioner Jasinski, for keeping an eye on that.
I just got a message that it's being live streamed.
Yeah, it's loading right now. There it goes. We're all good.
all right, if everybody will stand, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. If you'll just take one moment of silence for all our troops out in the hinterlands that are protecting us so that we can have a good time here in Dewey Beach. Thank you very much. I'll do a roll call of everybody as I call you. Please accept the fact that you're here. Commissioner Jasinski,
Here.
Commissioner Persinger,
Here,
Commissioner Bauer,
Here.
Commissioner Stevens,
Here.
and Mayor Commissioner Cook. I'm here. So everybody's present. We also have Sheena Gossard, our accounting clerk, Bill Zoper, our town manager, Jim Deedy, their assistant town manager, Chief Sam Mackert, town police chief, and Kate Banaszak, who's running the meeting for us. She's keeping me in line. I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda as put up.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Stevens and seconded by Mr. Persinger, I believe.
I did.
Okay, thank you. All in favor or any discussion on it? All, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? Kate, that was unanimous. Announcements and updates. Update to the town charter amendment from the town commissioner. Excuse me, town solicitor. Mr. Solicitor, we're going to make you a commissioner yet all these years you've been with us. If you'll go ahead, Mr. Townsend, and fill us in on the new charter amendments and where they stand.
Well, if I've done something wrong, I would appreciate a little more notice before you appoint me to council. You should try and correct my behavior before you penalize me. This has been a very long project, as you know, from beginning to end. Commissioner Persinger and others have been very involved in this. There was a charter committee that was convened that worked over the course of a very long period of time. And at the same time, or near the end of that effort, it became apparent that we wanted to make a charter amendment to allow for the imposition of the hotel tax. So we ended up finalizing that process about the same time as we moved to approve or pass the resolution requesting that the General Assembly adopt our charter recodification. We sent both of them over, I think, at the same time. One of them was sent over with an opportunity, or at least enough time in the session to be passed. But the charter amendment or recodification turned out to be 44 pages long and is a huge effort involved in preparing it, given the Legislative Council's bill drafting manual and policies that change from just a technical side, and then reviewing our charter in the context of any number of numerous changes in the law in general, which require us to react in our charter. So our charter, I think, got lost in the shuffle a little bit, and because it was such a big project, I'm guilty of not following up, assuming that it was moving along. But once we all got on the same page, I want to compliment Senator Lopez and the Legislative Council staff for really a monumental effort to get this done and released last week. And I don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, but the Senate bill, given the number 173, was released and assigned to committee and will be heard on Wednesday at 11:30. And I think we're expected to have a representative or two at that committee meeting, which is a virtual meeting. So we can talk about that. I know I'm available for it.
Fred, what was the date and time again?
It is 11:30 next Wednesday. And there are a number of bills on that agenda involving issues which are probably a lot more controversial than a charter. Charters are, obviously, it's very important that that every municipal charter be void of unconstitutional or unlawful provisions. So it requires a lot of study, but at the same time, representatives from different districts other than ours may not have quite as much interest in a town charter as they would in something that affects their constituents. So once it's given a seal of approval, I would expect it to move fairly quickly. So the challenge will be to get it out of the committee and get it on a Senate agenda, and then get it on a House agenda and to the governor between now and the end of the month. The good news for us is that we've got Senator Lopez, who is shepherding this through the Senate, and we've got as an additional co-sponsor Speaker Schwarzkopf, who's obviously in position to help us get this on an agenda. So I'm optimistic, given all the work that's been done, that this will get done this session. And my guess is that even if we had gotten it to them much earlier, or if there hadn't been an instance of wires being crossed, we probably wouldn't have gotten it through the process much sooner at all. I mean, much of the state's business gets done in June. It's just the nature of it. And as long as we get it done before the end of the session, then we're probably, it's probably a big success story.
Mr. Townsend, if I could interrupt for just 1 minute. I would hope that Mr. Persinger, who's been totally involved in this process all along, has been very involved, most involved from all the commissioners, if he would be able to attend that meeting. And is there any limit on who can attend and who should attend?
I don't believe there's any limit. So there is a link to a sign up. You have to sign up in advance and give some information as to who you are, but you won't necessarily be invited to speak unless there are questions. And if there's questions, then we would want to make sure we're in position to have the right person answer them. And in most cases, Commissioner Persinger is that person.
Right.
So,
Will you be available, Mr. Townsend?
I have it on my calendar, yes.
Great, very good.
And I can send the link to all of you, including Commissioner Persinger, and you can decide who else, perhaps Bill, perhaps your town manager, would attend as well. But again, I don't think they're looking for anything prepared from us. I think we just don't want the effort to stall because a question is raised that we can't answer.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, Mr. Persinger?
Yeah, I think I am available that day at that time, I believe. And just one comment. The review by the Legislative Council, I think, made the task for us of going back and reviewing all those changes more difficult. But at the same time, I think the document is a much better document as a result of that review. It's clearer, it's more readable, easier to interpret. So, I think that in the end is really a good thing, that review. It was a good, solid job, but, in my estimation.
So Legislative Council has a practice of proofreading with the assistance of outside attorneys, big bills like this. And a retired attorney that I used to work with spent a number of hours on this and identified a number of issues. And as you know, Commissioner Persinger, you identified a number of issues with the first draft. And of the comments that you made, I would say all of the substantive ones were incorporated, and there were a couple that I would view as non-substantive that were rejected simply because of the bill drafting manual and some language they're encouraged to use in certain circumstances. So it was nothing substantive was rejected by them. At this point, I think if there are any changes, if anyone identifies a needed change, it would have to be done through an amendment. Now that the Senate bill has been introduced and assigned to committee, it's beyond the stage where it would be revised without an official amendment.
All right. Any other comments, Mr. Townsend?
No, sir.
Thank you very much for keeping tabs on that. We really appreciate that. Any comments or questions for Mr. Townsend from the commissioners? Hearing none, if it's all right with the commissioners, we'll move on. Update on 5G polls from the town manager, Mr. Zolper.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Myself and Jim Dedes met with Sean Thompson from CTC on June 3rd for about 3 hours. Jim and I told Sean what our goals and objectives were for the town with the 5G polls. We took him out to the actual polls. We drove him around town to let him get a feel for doing, and also talked to him about our ordinances, our current ones for review, and what we'd like to see in future ordinances come in, and aesthetics for the town. At this time, I'll turn it over to Jim, and then after that, I believe Mr. Thompson's actually on to answer any questions. Jim?
Thank you. We also gave Mr. Thompson 5 permits that were submitted to us to take a look at. These were modifications to the 5 existing poles that Verizon put up. So he's going to help us through that process as well. The other issue that we wanted to ensure is that we had some sort of a remittance for our expenses included in the ordinance, because that would certainly alleviate some of the costs that are tied into it. But I thought it was a good meeting. I thought Sean understood pretty well what was going on. And I think we were very satisfied with our first meeting together.
Dave, you want to bring Sean on at this time, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Sean.
How are you, sir? Sean, how are you, sir?
Good, thank you. How about yourself?
Very good. Mr. Dedes, Mr. Zolper, you'll handle until we finish with Sean. Go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So, Sean, I was explaining to the commissioner, our first meeting, how we laid out our goals and objectives, what we want done with the 5G poles that are up on the dunes, aesthetics, new ordinances, reviewing the ordinance that we currently have. Would you want to just give a quick synopsis?
Yeah, sure. The Thursday before yesterday, we met and I did a tour of the town, looked at the existing sites. We also looked at other streets that may be affected in the future, or there's proposals there. From my perspective, we look at the technical aspects of the placements, possible alternatives, and then we also reviewed the town ordinance. I think the town ordinance goes a long way to address the issues that you have. But we also look to see if there are other recommendations that we might have for you. What we looked at is, what are the town's goals? And then how, potential ways that those specifically could be addressed. So next steps for us would be to review the ordinance against a set of ordinances that we have is kind of called best practices, but essentially we'll just look to do a comparison. And then we'll specifically look at the challenges that your town has and see if there are some recommendations that we can put forward for you. The other piece of this is that it seems to me that one of the most important things here is coming up with a way to manage the specific locations that they're proposing and looking at the technical aspects of that. So I understand that you'd like to move these locations as far from the water as possible, and that makes all the sense in the world. And so we're looking at some of the, let's say, the anticipated technical arguments that the industry may bring forth so that you're best armed to be able to challenge those. So that's where we're at. I think that we should have something for you more in a week or two.
Thanks, Sean. Any questions from the mayor or the commissioners?
Mr. Zolper, this is Mayor Dale Cook. I just have one statement and a question. Of course, the best option that we all feel is that we not have the polls at all, but that's not a viable option. So the best viable option, next best viable option, in my opinion, this is not the commissioner's opinion, this is my opinion, would be taller poles on the highway, like we saw in another town in Fenwick Island. The next best option from that would be if they claim that they have to be on closer to the beach on the side road. But I personally have a problem with them on the side roads. I personally have a problem with them line of sight in or closeness to people's houses. So do we have something, can we get ourselves something in writing, some ordinance that we should form to say that or be close to those options?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, you could simply say in your ordinance that, they need to be, that you're prohibiting it or that they're putting it on the highway. It's likely that it'll be a knee-jerk reaction from the industry that, they would not be happy with that. It's likely that in those cases, they'll essentially say this, you're effectively prohibiting their deployment. And I think where we come into play as a consultant is that they would make an argument that the options available to them are not technically possible for them to provide service and comply with the ordinance. And what we would do is we would challenge or we would review what their technical arguments would be. The other possibility is that we are looking into, what are all of the alternatives that we think that we can defend. And what we know for sure is that where they're placed now is not the only option. I mean, it's probably the worst possible option possible. But what we would like to do is look at this specifically and see if we can come up with some options that while they may not, well, first of all, we'll look to see, are these other, is Route 1, for instance, technically possible? And if it is, then, I think that you could adjust your ordinance immediately. If not, what we want to do is find the next best alternative. And it certainly won't be at the end of the street, dead center of the street. And then I think we can reconvene and review that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Zolper, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sean, do you have anybody else in the waiting room that's on your team?
I have another engineer, so if we had a technical question, he's there to answer it. but you don't need to bring it in. I won't be offended.
Is that Ron Evans?
That is.
Okay, so that's.
Mr. Zoll, the other commissioners might have some questions.
Yes, sir. Any other questions from the other commissioners?
Well, guess not. Anything else, Mr. Zolper, then? What if commissioners, you don't have any questions at all for Sean? All right, Mr. Zolper, was there any other part of the presentation you wanted to give?
No, sir. If Jim doesn't have anything, I have nothing else.
The only
Mr.
comment that I do have one comment, and I think one challenge we have in our aesthetic portion of the current ordinance, we really don't have a design for the actual pole itself. And I think that's something that we are going to be challenged as a community is, should we have to erect poles? Do we want wooden poles? Do we want a lamp post? Those are the things I think we have to discuss at some point.
Thank you. Well, if that's it, then Mr. Zolper, Mr. Didi, excuse me, Sean, thank you very much for everything. We appreciate it. If there's nothing else, then we'll move on to one other subject. Excuse me, I want to remind, as an update, I want to remind the commissioners that we need a member for the Board of Adjustments. It has to be a town resident, and it has to be somebody that really has some interest, and not only interest, but some knowledge in that field, in that area, because it's very, very important to the town and very important to the property owners here in town. So if you know anybody, please bring it up and let's discuss it. And since the passing of our chair of that board, we're kind of in a bind. We have somebody now, right, Mr. Didi, that is appealing process?
Yeah, there is one pending an appeal, and we need a chairperson or a representative from the committee to handle
Right.
the potential variance that they're requesting.
Now, normally, if I understand it correctly, and I may be wrong, I thought that the mayor nominates and the chairman, nominates the chairman, and then the commissioners say yes or no, and then the chairman. But under this circumstances, I'll go back a little bit. We have a committee in place. And do they elect their chairman, Mr. Didi?
I'm assuming that you all appointed it similar to the planning commission, but I defer to, because the planning commission, you all historically appoint the chair.
Yeah.
The Board of Adjustment is different. And I'll
Yeah,
I defer to our town solicitor on that.
that's considered a state mandated board. So
That's
Mr.
correct.
Jazinski, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, I looked it up and I could have sworn that the board picks their own chair. But I could be wrong about that, but I was pretty sure I looked it up. But the second thing, besides Beverly, who else created a vacancy on the Board of Adjustment?
Who else, what?
Created a vacancy on the Board of Adjustment besides Beverly?
No, I think there's just one
There's just one
chairman
vacancy.
passed, just the one board chair.
Well, did we already vote on a replacement?
No,
on
that
a new
was
person?
planning and zoning, I believe.
No, that was Board of
I
Adjustment.
thought that was Board of Adjustment, Dale.
Oh, is that, I'm sorry, then I'm mistaken. Jim, how about you and I, Mr. Didi, and I, if we get together after this on the phone and discuss it, and we can move forward quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a vacancy on planning and zoning though, to your point.
Well, then I confused it. I apologize to everybody.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jazinski, for straightening that out. That's very helpful. All right, if there's no other comments or updates, any commissioners have any comments or updates they want to make right now? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. Item number 1, discuss and possibly vote to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 65 Beaches, Article 1 of the Municipal Code of the Town of Dewey Beach, Delaware, relating to ocean beach use and activities. I will go to Mr. Persinger.
Well, we skipped over the approval of the May minutes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, the May 14th minutes, is that right? And
Yes.
Comment.
being wrong on the other one, I skipped that. I apologize. So we'll go back to that. Approval of the May 14th, 2021 town minutes. You all had the minutes sent to you. I assume everybody has read it. Is there any changes that anybody wants to make?
No.
Is there a motion to accept the minutes then? Commissioner
Motion.
Bauer?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Bauer?
A second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Bauer, seconded by Mr. Persinger. And again, I'll say thank you, Mr. Persinger, for bringing that up. Any other comments, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Kate, that's unanimous then. Now we'll move back to item number one, and I'll reread it. We're on item number one.
Well,
I'm sorry, we skipped public comment too.
Right.
I'm sorry, I got confused there. We skipped, I made too many check marks on my paper. Is there, Kate, is there anybody in the waiting room for public comment?
There is not.
Thank
No.
you thank you very much. Hearing that there isn't, we'll move on with item number one. Discuss and possibly vote to approve an ordinance to amend chapter 65 beaches, article 1 of the municipal code of the town of Dewey Beach, Delaware, relating to ocean beach use and activity. And since Mr. Persinger worked on this so much, we'll go to Mr. Persinger for his comments on this.
Yeah, we approved some new language in the code that would apply to the Bayside. And in doing so, that created some inconsistencies, conflict, and maybe a little confusion with the rules on the ocean side that were already existing in the code. So when we actually approved the Bayside ordinance, we had this beach or rather oceanside ordinance at the same time, but we couldn't take it up because we did not include it on the agenda. So that's the purpose of addressing it today. It is simply a clarifying ordinance. There's really nothing new here that I'm aware of, nothing that really changes. It's just to make things very specific so that we understand what the rules are on the ocean side, what they are on the bay side, and where there is a difference in the rules.
And basically, almost all of it is including the word ocean or ocean beach, where it wasn't clear before, it just said beach before. And in 65-5, removing drinking funnels, more than 3 beverages, and more than 3 empty beverage or trash containers. So that's
right.
basically the sum total. Is that right, Mr. Persinger?
That's correct.
And is there any, do I hear a motion to accept Mr. Bauer?
Yeah, great job on this, Gary. Thank you very much. Yes, I'd like the motion to approve this.
Motion to approve, Mr. Stevens has seconded that motion to approve. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Kate, that's unanimously passed. And I don't know what number that would be, but we'll get with Mr. Townsend and Ms. Banaszak and put the number to it afterwards. Thank you all very much. Item number 2, this is an item that I put on the agenda just to generally bring it up because of actions that have happened in town lately. Item number 2, discuss the current residential rental license safety certification affidavit form. And that is not the rental license itself. It's the Town of Dewey Beach Residential Rental License Safety Certification Affidavit. The only thing I wanted to do here, I'm not looking for any comments about what happened in town that brought it to my mind, but looking for any comments, things you might want added to this form that we might discuss and vote on at a later meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read the form? Here, Mr. Jazinski.
Well, I just have some comments when you're done speaking.
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, so as I think through this, first of all, I think just for both all the commissioners as well as the public, we need to understand what it is now. Right now, people self-certify the safety of their the rental unit with the town. The town has the right to inspect, but there's not an automatic inspection by any means unless the town feels they need to. And it's fairly brief, you know, the safety affidavit. And not getting into, you know, what happened recently, but, you know, I did take a look at our neighbor to the north, as well as a lot of municipalities in all kinds of areas of the country. And from my perspective, I think this affidavit needs to be beefed up from what I'm going to just call a health and safety perspective. Generally, most of the ones that I see are more thorough. They just cover more ground around, you know, electrical and floor trip hazards and making sure there's not mold and all the windows operate. You've got GFCI near your sinks and things like that. So, you know, I want to hear what the other commissioners think about this. This is really an administrative matter, but from my perspective, I'd be happy, Bill, to work with you or someone in your staff on trying to kind of make the self-safety certification more robust for the next rental season, is how I would put it.
Mr. Zoper, are you okay with Mr. Jazinski working with you possibly on this?
Yes, sir.
Good. I just remind everybody that the town of Dewey Beach does not have a building inspector. The town of Dewey Beach has a building official, and there's a big difference. Inspections are all done by the county as far as construction inspection. So there's a big difference there. So any other commissioners interested in working on that, or if you have any ideas, maybe send them to Mr. Persinger. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to help. I'm interested in what other municipalities are doing. Because I think there's a issue of how far along you go, you know, how much you beef this up. And it's not clear to me, you know, what should be done or what's possible, what other jurisdictions are doing, but I would like to have a better picture of that.
Well, any other comments from any other commissioners? Well, then, if you commissioners would have no problem with it, then I would ask Mr. Persinger and Mr. Jazinski to get with Mr. Zoper and possibly our building official to deal with proposals for the future. If that's
Okay.
all right, fine. Any other comments you want to make on this discussion? Anybody wants to make? Then we'll move on. Item number 3, review the May 2021 financial. Mr. Zoper?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I'll go through the May financials. Revenue expected for May was 426,235. Actual revenue for May was 631,523. A difference above expected of 205,288. A lot of this was due to transfer tax and building permits. Expenses expected for the month of May was 289,625. Actual expenses for May was 247,990. Difference below expected is 41,635. Year-to-date expected set-asides, 32,247. Actual year-to-date set-asides, 78,336. Year-to-date differences expected, 68,248. Actual year-to-date differences, 512,304. Sheena does a great job of tracking all this. She keeps me informed daily of what's coming in and what's coming out. It does appear we are doing very well, but I will say that we're only a couple months into this and a number of things could happen. For example, I'll talk about it a little bit later. You know, the air conditioning over in West Rehoboth in our warehouse is going out and we're going to have to replace that. So there are a lot of things that are not there now that could affect that. Sheena, do you have any additional comments?
Anything else, Mr. Zoper?
Sheena, do you have any additional comments? Okay, that's it, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Mr. Persinger?
Yeah, I just had a question. The only thing that I found really surprising in this, a little surprising, was the revenue side for parking permits and meters. I would have expected that to be at least on budget, if not above budget. My perception is that people are flocking back to town, and that should bring increases in parking revenues. Any thoughts or reactions to that? Maybe it's just an anomaly in terms of the way that the year-to-date budget is calculated. I don't know. Just curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, so, parking enforcement started May 15th, so we have less than 30 days of actual parking enforcement on the books right now. We actually did have approximately, in parking citations written, we had 683 that were written. Park mobile sales, but they have not come in yet. And Sheena, correct me if I'm wrong. Park mobile sales are at $96,586.65. But Sheena, they're not actually in there yet, correct?
After fines or fees that are associated, we ended up, it hit our bank account yesterday. There's 93,000 between daily and the meters. We are more people are being directed to use Park Mobile, and that, like our transfer tax, comes a month behind. This is the first year that we are using primarily Park Mobile and not selling the dailies to the extent we were before. Thus, the budget is skewed because we use a historical basis to allocate.
And Sheena, what we're covering is a half of the month of May. Is that correct?
Correct. And for that half a month, there was $93,000 that we got in our bank account between parking permits that people use through Park Mobile and the meters that they did through Park Mobile.
Great. Thank you. That was helpful.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, Dale, just a quick comment, to the commissioners.
Go
I think
ahead,
what
sir.
Gary brought up is a great question, because it's going to affect our historical timing of when we actually receive those fees associated with parking. And there's either two avenues to go. One is to an accruing amount that we anticipate at the end of the month for the month. For example, Eugene, I believe what you just said is that there's 90-some-odd thousand received for the month of May. That would have been May or through, was there any June in that 93,000?
No, sir. It is strictly May 1st. We get it. They go day 1 through the 31st. On the 1st of the next month, I can pull down, but I cannot get the full allocation of fees that will be deducted from it.
Okay. We may just want to do two things: get into a practice of accruing those numbers so that they're represented in the financial statements, or understanding that rolling forward, there will be this timing adjustment and adjust the budget accordingly. So it's just a matter of presentation of how the commissioners and or the town want to present it. But I think that's it, because what you just told me is we're actually doing better.
This change was made after the allocation.
Yeah.
I can go back and reallocate based on moving everything forward. If the commissioners would like, that is no problem to reallocate the way the budget's entered.
Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing to do is probably just to reassess the year-to-date budget, I would think.
Just moving the months, not changing the total.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that item?
That seems easier too.
Excuse me?
I said, that seems easier to move it that way, move the month.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners or those in attendance? All right, then. Thank you, Mr. Zolper, for that. We'll move on to the next item, which is Mr. Zolper, town manager comments.
So thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do have a lot of things that I want to just let the commissioners know and the citizens and visitors know. So first of all, I want to say Memorial Day weekend went off without a hitch, really, with the exception of the accident that we had on Reed Street. The chief, his department did an outstanding job making sure we had folks covering the streets. I was out doing actual meter readings, audio meter readings for 2 of those nights. But we had folks down on the Dickinson Street where they should have been, McKinley, Dagsworthy, and then up there in front of in front of the starboard and then back on Bayard. So Chief, nice job to you and your folks. I appreciate all the work. And I'm going to talk about it a little later about how many people we have in town compared to other municipalities on a weekend like that. The chief's continuing to do the training based on Captain Warren's, review, community policing training, use of force training, and a supervisor type of training. And top of that, he's got bowler wrap and some other things that will be coming up in the near future. Chief, do you have anything else?
No, you hit all the topics.
Thanks, Chief. Moving on, I'm working with DelDOT about speed bumps. I've had a number of different citizens ask about those, one on Reed Street on the ocean side and maybe one down on Sweet Street on the bay side. Talked to DelDOT about that. The mayor and I met with DelDOT for about 2.5 hours. We walked through the town with them. We looked at Van Dyke Street, discussed it, Reed Street, New Orleans Street. We talked about the French drains. I'll talk about those a little bit later. Met with 3 different HOAs, and one of those, the chief and Merle came with me. It was very positive. The citizens like seeing myself and the chief and Merle addressing some of the issues out there. I want to continue that and also let the folks out there know if you have an HOA and you want me to attend, please let me know. And then if you need, I can ask the chief and Merle from Code Enforcement to attend those. I met with Highway 1 with Alex Pyrus and his business team the other day to introduce myself to them. I ended up Memorial Day walking down both the west side and the east side of Route 1, introducing myself to the different business owners. I thought that paid off very well. We had a vaccination at the starboard on the 5th. That was with DEMA, the National Guard, and the starboard. We also want to do another one down with Highway 1, possibly at the rudder in the next couple weeks. I've discussed that with Director AJ Shell of DEMA. The chief's been very proactive in that, also supporting those initiatives. We're waiting to see when we can do the next one, possibly down in one of Highway 1's locations. We're participating in a project called Gray Fox. That's out of the auditor's office, Ms. McGinnis's office. Dewey Beach was a pilot for that. The mayor agreed, and I agreed that was something that we should do. Basically, with the American Rescue Act money that's coming in, we are going to actually be registering that with the auditor's office. So there's transparency and people know how the money is being used. Talking about the American Rescue Act, we're going to get approximately $215,000 from that. We haven't received it yet, but I have filled out all the paperwork that has come in for that. And Sheena's the backup on that also. So I think between the American Rescue Act and going forward on what we can spend the monies on, the funding on that, and then registering that in Operation Gray Fox, I think the town will be doing a good job. We'll be very transparent. I've had a request for a street light. I remember when I was preparing for this job, watching a Zoom in either November or December when this discussion took place between the commissioners, and there wasn't an appetite for it from what I remember from watching the Zoom meeting. So I just want the commissioners to know that I'm being asked again about that. And so I may be coming back before you to have a further discussion about street lights or street lights on certain streets. July 4th, I received, after we had the fireworks last month, I contacted the fire marshal's office. I said, going forward, if you get any more requests about having fireworks, let me know. They contacted me and they said they've gotten a request from Highway 1 to have fireworks for the 4th of July. The chief is aware of that. The chief and I have both met with Alex Pyrus about that, and we look forward to working with them moving forward with July 4th fireworks. The hotel tax will start in July. That was brought up a little earlier and also on the budget and finance committee meeting. Comprehensive land use plan. Gary, thank you so much for all the work that you've put into that, and Jim working on that. I know we got a due date and Jim would like to have it by Tuesday of next week. So thank you so much for doing that. As I said, the AC unit in West Rehoboth has gone out. We're going to have to replace that. And again, going back to Commissioner Persinger's use of the general fund, the rainy day fund, the 2-month fund, and then a capital improvement investment fund. This is exactly what we should be setting money aside for when we have things that go out like that is not expected. So that's going to be something that we're going to need to look at and probably replace. It's going to be anywhere between $7,000 and $8,000 to replace that unit over in West Rehoboth. It is the original unit. It's about 12 to 15 years old from what I was told. Movie night will start on the 28th of this month at 8:30, and bonfires will start on the 30th. Are there any questions of what I've gone over so far? Okay, just to go over some things with code enforcement. Just, I know there was a question about booting, you know, what they put on the actual wheels. We did 3 so far this year, so far since the 15th. Each one of those were $80 a piece. So we are using those boots. I know for some years there was a question if we've ever used them. So they are being used, and that is being talked about park mobile sales. Also out doing meter readings. We are doing those readings on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. And then we have a float between Tuesday and Wednesday, depending on when we are getting calls and complaints. The chief has been very proactive. Merle's been very proactive on that. The readings come in. I get a snapshot of those readings Saturday morning and Sunday morning. So if somebody calls me, whether it's a commissioner, mayor, or a citizen, and says, hey, the music at this location was loud Friday night into Saturday morning at this time, I have those readings in front of me from Merle's people that are out taking the readings those nights. And also the chief will respond if it's one of the nights that we don't have the person out there. So I think we're being very proactive on that, and we're moving forward. We had $2,400 collected in citations so far for the month of May. Also for the month of May, from May 15th to the end of the month, the police department, not code enforcement, but the police department wrote 85 parking citations. 65 of those were done over Memorial Day weekend. So I think the chief's doing a great job with his new summer folks that he has there. And you all got a copy of our statistics from the police department. You know, as our overall traffic tickets went down, our criminal arrests went up, if you look at that. And I think that's a good reflection of how the chief has his guys responding. And I'd like to just bring something up. So when you look at the 4 largest towns in the state of Delaware, Wilmington's #1, Dover, Newark, Middletown's #4 with 21,000 people. They have 40 sworn officers in the town of Middletown with 21,000 people. For 3 months, we go somewhere between 20 and 30,000 people on the weekends here. Now, granted, we're only a mile long and 2 blocks wide, but when you add adult beverages to that, things happen. So I just bring that up now. Keep that in mind as we move forward, that we only have 10 sworn full-time officers. We have 14 seasonal officers, and I've got some photos of them coming up in just a second. But please keep that in mind as the chief's got people responding, and we're trying to manage, 10 officers with the part-timers that come in. It's even harder now to get part-timers with the situation that happened down in Delmar. A lot of these towns want to keep those folks in their own jurisdictions doing their own work. Chief, do you have any comments on that?
No, but I would like to thank Chief Brown from Milford Police Department, Chief Harvey from Milton Police Department, Chief Collins from Selbyville Police Department, and Chief R.L. Hughes from the Georgetown Police Department that were kind enough to send officers from their departments to help us out during the Memorial Day weekend. That was a big help to us, and we sincerely appreciate them sending officers down.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate that. Appreciate your comments. So from the Alderman Court, we brought in about $7,600 for the month of May. I received an email from Commissioner Jasinski and some other folks about some of the trash over Memorial Day, just continuous trash in the streets. I think to address that, there was we exchanged emails back and forth. So you're going to see my full-time maintenance person and my part-time maintenance person on Friday mornings and on Monday mornings out doing cleanup on the streets. They were out there this morning. If you saw them, you're going to see them out there again Monday. You're going to see some folks on the weekends also. Some business owners have volunteered to purchase us a GOAT, which is one of these industrial vacuum cleaners, which we should have had anyway. I guess depending on how you look at the French drains that the highway department put in for us, we're supposed to be maintaining those and cleaning those with this GOAT type of vacuum cleaner. Some of the business owners have decided that they will go ahead and buy that GOAT for us. We expect to get those proceeds next week. We'll order it, and hopefully we'll have that GOAT in here in the next 3 to 4 weeks to start doing some other cleaning along the shoulders of the road. Any questions on that?
That's awesome. I think that's awesome.
Thanks. Water rescues, since Captain Fritchman has started, they've had 1 open water rescue, 2 water assists, 4 EMS responses, 1 first aid, 6 first aids, 2 missing kids, and beach chair access, the wheelchair access on the beach. They've been used 17 times since Todd started full time. And I think that's great. We're getting another 4 to 6 of those in the next couple of weeks, the handicap wheelchairs. Also, in light of what's happening in Ocean City with the lawsuit down there with an umbrella striking a citizen, I talked to Todd David Lynham about that. And Todd says they developed a system down there with the beach service that once the winds are sustained between 12 and 20 miles an hour, they will go out and they will look and evaluate the umbrellas. And if they need to be put down, the beach service and Todd's folks will both go out and tell the citizens on the beach that they either put their umbrellas down or turn them into the direction of the wind. I thought that was a great idea by Todd and Dave Lynham. So they've already got that process set up. I mean, things happen in nature and nothing's 100%, but at least they're trying to do their best to address that. Also, the lifeguards reached a milestone there in the United States Lifeguard Association advanced service. So to be an advanced service, they have to meet certain qualifications, and Todd's team has done that. We did get a request, and it'll come up later in the July meeting, for the starboard to do both the running of the bulls on August 21st and Dewey Goes Pink on the 9th. We will bring that up and put it on the agenda for the July meeting so the commissioners can review that and take it under consideration. There will be a protest on July 5th on the end of Rodney Street. The permit came in, and Chief and I both reviewed it. We're moving forward on it. This is on the poles at the end of the streets, the 5G poles by Save Dewey. That protest will take place. It's scheduled for between the morning and noon on July 5th. At the very last quarter of the street, they're going to go down. They're going to let the citizens down there know that the day before that they plan on doing a peaceful protest down there with signs and a lot of kids down there doing that. Talked to the mayor about it, and we decided, that should go forward. I talked to the chief, and we decided that should go forward. Real quick, I just want to share my screen with, so these are the new cadets that just came through, the seasonals that the chief has. They were being sworn in that day by CCP judge. And then right after that, they did additional training. Here they are again. And then Todd, on Memorial Day weekend, had all his folks in doing training. And of course, the weather was bad. So he had them still out there going through cover downs and how to use the buoys for the rookies. Here are some, after Memorial Day weekend, some of the training they were doing with the rookies. Here's the new swim area that's there on Van Dyke Street. It's still under evaluation. Todd and I are discussing how it needs to be moved and whether it goes out or make it bigger or smaller. But so far, that's the marked area. We haven't had any issues so far. No boats have come through the swim area. These are some signs that were down on Collins Street that we had removed after checking with DENREC. They were actually on Dewey Beach property, and DENREC said they did not have permits. We removed them and put them back up under the HOA Association President's House down there at Indian Beach. This was some of the work that was done down on Reed Street. Here, they're flushing the pipes out down towards the end. Here is where they put the new liner in. You can see the liner here that goes in. They hit it up with steam and a bunch of other, it smelled almost like a super glue. When this gets into the pipe, it hardens like cement. That's what it looks like, and they have to actually take a saw and cut it at both ends, and the liners on the inside are as hard as a rock. This is the work that they did down on Swedes and Bayard down there also. And this is what the actual pipe looks like after they do the cut with the saw, and you can see the water running through here, and this is on another line they're doing over here. But the project down on Swedes and Bayard and down on Reed Street was a success. We still have to do some work where the water goes out into the bay, and we're discussing that with Jim Dedes and the mayor now on how to pursue. And we'll also be talking infrastructure chairman about that. This is something Kate and some of the folks in the front office came up with. You can see there's 3 different flyers here: dog friendly, bonfire, and a general information guide. These things are super. We give them out for, you come and get a dog license, you get this. Our guy that's working on the beach in the morning doing dog license requirements, he's giving this out. And then here you go. This is on the bonfires. We give this out every time, and there is additional information on the backsides. And then this is our general information, goes out to the folks that come in and just ask for general questions. So my hat's off to Kate and our team up front for putting these together. They're long overdue. This is a card that we developed. Todd asked for it, and we talked to Joyce up front. So when we have people drinking on the beach, the lifeguards will walk up to them and say, hey, you know, and they'll hand them this card and say, there's not supposed to be any alcoholic beverages on the beach. And they'll actually show them this ordinance and ask them to remove the alcohol from the beach. If they don't, the lifeguards will then call the police, and a uniformed police officer will come down and issue a ticket if they refuse to leave the beach. This is a fundraiser I'm doing. This is going to be a new dog license that we're going to sell in the front. We're still going to sell the $35 lifetime one. This is also a lifetime one that we're going to sell to raise money to pay for the bags for the cleanup on the beach for the dogs that are at the end of every street. One side, it'll be the Dewey emblem. On the other side, it'll say, I'm a Dewey dog. It'll be 2021 through 2021 through 100. And these will be for sale for $50 each. And again, these proceeds will go to pay for the bags at the end of each one of the beaches. So that's real quick, my presentation there. I appreciate your patience. If there's any questions, please let me know. And again, thanks to the police chief and all the hard work from his folks.
Well, Mr. Zolper, this is Mr. Cook. Could you give just a little bit more of an update on the where we stand right now? I know it's going to be a little bit vague, but about the ends of the pipe in Van Dyke and Reed going into the bay.
So the pipes at the end of Reed Street was an Inland Bay project that took place approximately, I guess, 2 years ago or so. All three of those pipes that run out into the bay, Jim and I have been down, looked at them. We've had engineers down and looked at them. We've had two different groups give us estimates on cleaning those out. They're completely clogged. Two of them are completely clogged, and the third one is probably 50% clogged.
With sand.
What's that?
With sand, though.
Yes, they're clogged with sand. The flaps don't seem to be working. At some point, those are going to need to be completely cleaned out. We don't want to do the work right now because it would tie up the end of the street for a number of weeks when people are down there trying to vacation. But it's going to have to be done. And the same thing's going to have to be done down on Van Dyke with the two cement pipes that run out from the storm drain there. They're completely clogged with sand. That's going to be an investment from infrastructure. We may be able to use some of the American Rescue Act money for that. But yeah, they're completely clogged, all of them. Jim, any comments on that?
We've got, yes, we've gotten several estimates so far for cleaning out the Reed Avenue pipes. And they're all running they're all pretty competitive, from $8,000 to $9,000 for Reed Avenue. The ones on the storm drain issue on Van Dyke, Dewey Beach Enterprises has had a contractor, but apparently that fell through. So they're trying to get another contractor to go through. And we're in the process of helping them fill out a safety certificate with DelDOT to allow them to complete their project. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Jim. I just want the commissioners to understand that there is a problem there. It's going to have to be addressed. That one of the problems, the Reed Street problem, we were told as a town that we had to maintain it once it was built. It has not ever been cleaned out, has not been maintained. I think that's part of the problem, or a lot of the problem. But the one on Van Dyke, I think, is my personal opinion. I think it's a design problem, and I think it has to. I think I've told Bill and I've told Jim that I think they need to talk with the hotel and DB&E to have it designed properly and relayed out. So it's something that they're working on, that they're at least looking at. But it is a problem, and on Van Dyke, it's going to end up being a safety problem there with the swimming area if the swimming area is ever expanded. And on Reed, it's going to be a continued problem unless we get it solved now. So we're going to end up spending money. But I wanted the commissioners to know about it ahead of time. So you will be informed by the town manager. Mr. Zolper, is there anything else?
No, sir.
If you don't, questions from the commissioners, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Bill, thank you for all your great work and your comments. Just questions on a few of the things that you just showed. I'm glad that the repair on the pipe went well. Living a block away, I wasn't sure what that smell was initially. But we quickly went out and researched, and so I'm glad, and we'll see how that holds up over the next few years as we continue to monitor as we have additional streets here in town. The swim area that you showed at the end of Van Dyke there, that does not necessarily mean that people can't swim outside. Is that the only section that people can swim?
So basically, that keeps boats from coming into a controlled area. People can still swim in the other area, but when they do,
Okay.
you could have boats moving in and out. But that area is to keep the boats from coming in.
I just want to make sure visually it seemed like that was the only, like my mind put it as the only swim area, but I just want to make sure that that's just a safe swim area. People can swim in the other side of it. The other Bill, thing that comes to mind, and I don't know the answers, but something for you to consider. I know that we had talked in the past from the commissioner standpoint of working with DelDOT and potentially reducing the speed limit through Dewey. I don't know what ever happened to that. I can tell you that this past weekend, I think my biggest concern as a commissioner and as a resident is the speed at which motorcycles are going through this town. I witnessed a child almost getting hit on Saturday. Somebody taking off from Reed Street and not seeing somebody in the crosswalk on McKinley, and it was just scary. So just want to just put that in. Now, I don't know that there's an answer to it, but when they're going to 0 to 50 in 20 feet and thinking that they can outrun us, it just is an issue. And you can hear them as they're going through town. So that's just a comment for you, Bill.
I appreciate that, and that's a great reason why I have the chief on, because he and I are trying to discuss ways to slow people down. You know, we had the signs in the crosswalk, and DelDOT said we had to move them on to the center island. So, but the chief and I are continuing to look at different ways to maybe slow people down coming through town. I'll talk with him about the question.
The only good thing is the kid had a surfboard or a boogie board on his side, and so the motorcycle saw it before just going right past the car that was already stopped to get around. So it was almost a very dangerous situation. So thank you, Bill, and thank you, Chief.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners about the town manager's report?
No.
Hearing none, I'll move on to one more item that before I get to commissioners' comments. Yes, I will. The next meeting, before I forget, there's a special meeting that you all agreed to at 4 p.m. on June 25th to cover the ordinance for changing the ordinance for eateries and to address the ordinance for conditional use for an eatery that has been requested. So that's at 4 p.m. on the 25th, and that will be a Zoom meeting. The next regularly scheduled town meeting is what I would like to go back to the regular schedule of the town meeting, in-person town meetings at 6 p.m. July 9th at the Life Saving Station. Unless there's a problem, I think it's time we need to get back to regularly scheduled meetings and holding meetings. You know, our regular schedule of the town has always been on the schedule of during the summer season. We're at Friday night at 6 o'clock. During the fall, winter, and spring season, we're on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. So just unless there's a problem with that, if you do have a problem with that, please contact me and we'll try to work something out. But I want to get back to a regularly scheduled situation.
Could I ask a question?
Excuse me? Yes, sir, Mr. Stevens.
No, Gary's first.
Mr. Persinger.
Yeah, do we have a draft of the two ordinances that will be considered on the 25th that reflect planning and zoning's input?
Yes, that'll be sent out to you, Mr. Townsend. That's correct, right?
That's right.
It'll be sent out.
Okay.
Any other questions or
Yeah,
comments?
Mr. Mayor, is it possible to have that meeting a little bit earlier on the Friday nights? Is it possible to have it at 4 o'clock, or is the 6 o'clock the best for everyone?
Well, the idea was we were trying to allow people, it's always been at 6 because we allow owners, if they want to get down here from Pennsylvania or DC or Baltimore, to be able to get in and see it at 6 o'clock.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Jazinski,
We also have the conflict with the lifeguards too.
that's correct. They're there
Thank you.
until 5 o'clock. So, okay, commissioners' comments. Item number 5, Commissioner Bauer.
Yeah, well, I want to thank our whole staff here. Just, when I look back at all the stuff that's getting done in town hall, it's pretty amazing to me. So, Kate, you're filling in admirably in Ashley's absence here shortly. So Kate, this was your first one putting it all together, right?
I've had some experience when she was taking vacation, so I had a few warm-up runs, but this was the full dive in for the next few months.
You're in. You went full head first into the pool. So great job, Kate. Thank you very much. And Chief, just the way Memorial Day went down, I think that was an excellent work on your part and your staff's part. So thank you to everybody there. Jim, how many things are you spearheading now? Jim Dedes, you're doing like everything at this point. You're involved in every piece. So thank you, Jim.
Jim.
Just what my town manager wants me to do.
Well, we appreciate it. And Sheena, you're doing a great job just getting us reports, and they're simple. We understand them. And the numbers are looking great, and you're really focused and doing an excellent job on that. And then Merle and her code enforcement group, they're doing they're doing the best with what they got. I mean, wish we had some more people to walk around and give tickets out, but doing a great job there. And then Todd, our lifeguard captain, at the Advanced Service Award for lifeguards. If you could get us some names of what's involved in that and how that all went down, I'd like to, maybe give them some recognition in our next meeting. But and last but not least, Bill, how many days on the job now? Are you're
5 months.
We could go down a list, but what you've done in that short period of time, it's pretty amazing to me. So thank you very much for everything everyone's doing.
Team effort.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Bauer?
Nope, that's it. Thank you very much.
I think you're stealing all our thunder here. You're first in line.
Hey, you got to put me in the back of the line then.
All in favor?
Commissioner
All in
Jazinski. Commissioner Jazinski.
What Paul said.
No other comments?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, I would just say after listening to the town manager's report, there's only one thing to say, and that is great job, town manager and staff. I think we all appreciate your hard work, and I hope the property owners and residents of the town do as well.
Thank you, Mr. Persinger. Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Stevens.
I don't like going last on this because it always will seem like I don't have good things to say, but since
No,
I would
I go
just say-
last.
Well, no, you go first and then you go last because you always get the last word. But here we are, we're entering into another great year. And, Chief, I just want to say your job's a lot like payroll because it's as long as everything goes right, there's no complaints. But once there's a mess up, it's a big mess up. And I just want to thank you and your team. You guys we're going to have a great year.
Appreciate it.
Is that all, Mr. Stevens?
That's all I have.
Well, then it comes to me, the last word here. My thunder has been stolen by most of the other commissioners, mostly Mr. Bauer. I had a list of items here that I wanted to cover. Mr. Bauer covered most of them, so I won't keep that up. I do want to say that I think the commissioners deserve a lot of praise in this. This is not a pat everybody on the back process, but this is the first time in a long time we've had all the commissioners on board. And even if we disagree politely. And we disagree without accusing people or pinpointing people and saying, you did this or you did that. And we don't have arguments among the commissioners, and we haven't had arguments among the commissioners and the staff. And that's very important to me. I was so tired of that. I've been around a long while. I'm not an ageist, but I've probably been around too long. I'm 74 now, and be 75, close to 75 at the end of this term, and it's nice to see everything going so well. I have to tell you, Mr. Zolper, I think you've done an absolutely excellent job in the 5 months you've been here. You've worked on things that have probably been needed for 5 years during that 5 months. And Chief, over the years, we've been around each other a long time, and we've argued and fussed and fumed, but we've come to a conclusion that neither one of us are going anywhere. So unless the Lord takes us away, and that hasn't been decided. So I want to really, I'm very, very pleased that we have a town manager and a set of department heads that are really doing a great job. And he's not a department head, but our assistant town manager seems to be, like he was said earlier, he seems to be doing a million different items and helping our town manager. So to the assistant town manager, Mr. Dedes, I really appreciate it also. We're in good financial situation right now. It surprised us all. We thought we were going to be in a real problem, and we knuckled down and solved that problem along with the then town manager and the new town manager, and the commissioners trying to not tell them what to spend and how to do it and let them do their job. We're a lot better off than we were in the past. But I have to remind you that we need to be careful. As I said to someone earlier today, you can't go out and say, oh, we're flush with money, let's hire a lot of people. Because what do you do next year when the money doesn't come in like that quickly? So you can't go around and firing people. So let's just be careful about how we handle it. You know, personally, I really have a great time doing this job, except when somebody comes knocking on my door on Sundays, but that's all right. We pretty much eliminated most of that. I really enjoy doing this job, but it's time for a change. It's time for a definite change, and at 74 going on 75, I'm not in tune with the rest of the town the way I should be. I think we need a mayor and another commissioner that is telegenic, phonogenic, and a little more eloquent than I am. And so I'm going to announce at this time that I will not be running for office this fall. And I think it's time to get some of you guys that are town residents to step up and possibly run for mayor. So I appreciate everything that you guys have done. I didn't mean it to be this long and drawn out, but I will not be running for office again in town. I'm gonna live my last few years out in this town and enjoy the beach. And when they come along, tell me stop drinking, I'm gonna stop drinking and walk off the beach in a huff. So other than that, that's about it. I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Jasinski, seconded by Mr. Bauer. All in favor, say aye.
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 And a definite aye from me. So thank you all very much. I'll see you later.